Boxing has always created amazing moments, from Ollie's rope-a-dope Mike Tyson winning the heavyweight title at just 20 years of age, all the way to Tyson Fury rising up off the canvas like a phoenix, rising from the ashes in his first Deontay Wilder meeting. The sport of boxing has always created spectacular moments that fans never forget. However, with the recent rise of influencers and celebrities stepping into the combat sports world, into crossover boxing matches, more and more unbelievable moments continue to happen. So, as 2022 comes to a close, so does arguably the single greatest year for YouTube boxing. With 10 major events, 2022 saw the most ever YouTube boxing matches in a given year at 51 in total, not even including the Mogul chess boxing event. This also included the most ever KOs in a single given year at 27, including 16 unanimous decisions, 4 split decisions, 2 draws, and 2 disqualifications. So, with all the KOs, upsets, and unbelievable moments that 2022 saw inside the world of crossover boxing, today we determine the top 10 best moments of 2022 inside the world of YouTube boxing. Number 10, Dr. Mike and iDubbbz go the distance for charity. All the way back in 2018, YouTuber iDubbbz had called out multiple creators, but specifically he called out RiceGum for a boxing match, which RiceGum would inevitably pull out of. For a while, iDubbbz just wanted to get a fight. He ended up having to create his own event called the Creator Clash. Nobody really wanted to fight him, whether it was for money or just differences with the promotion that iDubbbz had created. No one wanted the fight. Enter Dr. Mike, YouTuber with over 10 million subscribers, someone that claims to have been doing boxing for over 10 years, accepted the match against iDubbbz on iDubbbz's own event. And quickly the card would take shape, featuring the first ever female YouTube boxing matchup. The card was done completely and entirely for charity, in which they would allegedly raise up to $1 million for a great cause, which was the American Heart Association and including the Alzheimer's Association. The match was pretty one-sided as Dr. Mike cruised to an easy unanimous decision victory. However, it wasn't without any difficulty. The entire event of Creator Clash was just such a monumental event. It had to be included on the list, and the way iDubbbz and Dr. Mike did kind of go to war, iDubbbz stayed in the fight for a long time, but Dr. Mike edged pretty much every single round, giving himself the unanimous decision victory, picking up the number 10 spot on the list. Number 9, Salt Poppy absolutely destroys Andy Worski in 29 seconds. It was the inaugural Misfits 001 event, and Salt Poppy versus Andy Worski was placed on the undercard, in which Salt Poppy, one of the more promising guys in all of YouTube boxing, accepted the Andy Worski matchup and would quickly chase down Worski with jabs to the body, control him, fire a nasty left hook that wobbled Worski, fire a right hand, then another left hook, take a step back, and fire one of the most devastating left hooks on an opponent that is already out on his feet that you will ever see in all of boxing. Salt Poppy picked up an amazing victory, giving his signature, I don't know what to call this, but amazing looking face thing that he does after every single win, and picked up another signature victory in which he knocked out Andy Worski inside the first round and putting him into the conversation for who is the number 1 pound for pound fighter in influencer boxing. Number 8, King Kenny finally picks up a decisive victory over DK Money. 2022, at least the first 3 quarters of the year, were not something that King Kenny was super proud of. He went back-to-back close decisions in which the entirety of the YouTube boxing community seemed to call robberies, in which he fought Face Temper and picked up the win on the night, but it eventually was overturned, and then would go on to face FaZe Sensei, and one of the highest level displays of boxing that we've seen inside the world of YouTube boxing, and he would pick up the victory on that night. The victory was never overturned, but lots of controversy surrounded the win. However, King Kenny was now an ICB champion and needed to defend his title. Who better to defend that against the oncoming DK Money, making his own Misfits debut in a title matchup. King Kenny would go on to completely demolish DK Money, fire a nice right hook around the guard that completely destroyed the equilibrium, and then just right on the chin, straight right hand, put DK Money down and out, could not meet the count. King Kenny retained his belt and finally picked up the victory that everyone was calling for, creating one of the most wholesome post-fight interviews that you'll ever see with himself and the entire beta squad.
Take some time off. I want to spend some time with my boys, you know. So,
yeah, baby.
And then, you know, we'll resume camp like maybe a month later for whenever the next fight date is.
You boys gonna make sure he has a good night tonight, yeah?
100%.
Let's go.
Number 7, Greg Hardy beats Hasim Rahman Jr. in a crazy upset with Shannon Briggs in the corner. This matchup proved that David does not always beat Goliath. In fact, in the real world, Goliath wins most of the time.
That scores a knockdown for Hardy!
Greg Hardy with a nearly 100-pound weight advantage over the extremely talented Hasim Rahman Jr., recently coming off of a Jake Paul fight that fell out, and Greg Hardy coming off of a UFC career that kind of failed towards the end. Greg Hardy would march down Hasim Rahman Jr. after a tough first round and land repeated heavy blows that would continue to rock Hasim, dropping him multiple times into the ropes and on the ground, picking up a nice unanimous decision victory that proved that Goliath usually beats David. And for Hasim Rahman Jr., it was a very tough thing to see. He made it to the decision, but still, he was completely dominated by the bigger man, and Greg Hardy didn't do what a lot of people felt that he should do, but it still created a major upset because Hasim Rahman Jr. has major boxing accolades, is a 12-2 pro now, and Greg Hardy picked up a nice win on Misfits X the Zone 003. Number 6, KSI secures 2 knockout victories in one night. KSI was set to face Alex Wasabi on the inaugural Misfits X the Zone X Series 001 event. However, following a pullout due to an injury from Alex Wasabi, KSI needed a replacement opponent, and the opponent that had already been signed on to replace Wasabi if something went wrong was the madman himself, Swarms. Now, this was faced with a ton of public backlash, so KSI, needing to find a replacement or do something spectacular, decided, I'm gonna fight 2 people on the same night, somehow getting it approved with the commission. Now, these weren't technically pro fights, however, he was able to get this worked out with the commission and was able to fight Swarms and Luis Alcaraz Pineda, who replaced another pro, a Bulgarian boxer who happened to come out with some crazy racist tattoos, so Luis Alcaraz Pineda was called up on even shorter notice to take on KSI. KSI would start off the card with a bang, dropping Swarms multiple times, finishing him off with a nice left hook uppercut combination that left him unable to answer the count. KSI went back to the locker room, realized Nico Amalana walked him out, and then stepped back into the ring for the main event versus a pro boxer, Luis Alcaraz Pineda, who turned out to be the weakest Mexican I think we've ever seen inside the boxing ring. KSI completely dominated him, really showing how powerful his 8 to the body is, hurting Pineda to the body, hurting him to the head. Pineda continuously complained about back of the head strikes. However, KSI went on to show he was the much better boxer and that Pineda, being a journeyman, was paid to get in the ring and lose. Not directly, but he still went into the ring and lost. However, it was extremely impressive for KSI to pick up 2 victories in one night, a crazy feat that you don't see at all nowadays. Number 5, Dean the Great and Wallet Sharks put on the fight of the year, and Dean the Great makes an amazing comeback to get the win. Misfits X the Zone Series 003 kind of fell apart after Hasim Rahman Jr. was forced to fight a replacement opponent following TRT Vitor having to pull out of the fight for maybe not having enough testosterone in his system. I don't quite know. However, the event was kind of without a main event. Greg Hardy versus Sim didn't seem like it would sell as well, so Dean the Great and Wallet Sharks were upgraded to the main event of the evening, and man did they put on a performance. Wallet Sharks would go on to drop Dean the Great multiple times, had Dean the Great wobbled terribly, and put on an absolute masterclass of a performance, keeping Dean at bay with a nice jab to the body, right hands over the top, being extremely disrespectful, throwing 2 rear hands in a row in an orthodox matchup, something that you never see. He was showing that he was the much better boxer. However, as we all know, even in the lower weight classes, one punch can change everything. Dean the Great landed a massive overhand that put Wallet Sharks out, and following him walking back to the referee into the corner, the referee was forced to call the fight off, looking to save the fighter. Number 4, Jake Paul defeats Anderson Silva and proves how good he really is. Now, I know this is going to be a pretty controversial pick, especially with people calling that this fight was rigged. However, it simply wasn't. There is no evidence to suggest this. Anderson Silva would never take a dive, one of the most honorable men in the entire history of MMA. I mean, he did kind of have a blip in his career with the steroid accusations. However, it wasn't like he meant to juice, and Jake Paul fought the 48-year-old Anderson Silva in a boxing match All the MMA experts felt like, man, Anderson should win this fight. Jake Paul, there is no way he's on his level, and Jake Paul proved he has gotten to such a high level, beating Anderson Silva, putting a stamp on the performance, knocking Anderson down in the final round. The matchup was close. Both fighters are good, very, very good, but Jake Paul went on to win, proving himself to be a legitimate boxer and proving himself to be a lot better than what everyone else thought. Number 3, a Nissan Gibbs comeback victory that killed Social Gloves. Gibb and McBroom had been beefing for quite some time, and the rivalry only escalated following a July meeting between the two that was canceled following a Nissan Gibb failing to attain a pro boxing license in the state of Nevada due to medical issues. However, the matchup was rescheduled for just a few short months later. Live from Los Angeles, and Nissan Gibb and Austin McBroom were set to finally settle the score, and they would in style, putting on an amazing display of boxing. And Nissan Gibb would end up getting dropped in the opening round, and things weren't going too well for him. It was kind of starting to look like a repeat of the Jake Paul loss. However, Gibb would dig deep and make an amazing comeback, dropping Austin McBroom multiple times and picking up a spectacular knockout victory and improving his YouTube boxing record to 4-1. Number 2. Slim Albaher makes his Misfits debut and KO's Temper on short notice in the upset of the year. Slim Albaher was called in to face FaZe Temper on fairly short notice in a title matchup, and Slim would go on to set up a beautiful KO over FaZe Temper and knock him out cold. Everyone felt like FaZe Temper was going to be too much, too long, too technical as the southpaw fighter who was pretty technically skilled. However, Slim, with all of his experience, went on to prove that he is a problem for everyone in YouTube boxing, picking up a nasty KO that left FaZe Temper confused, not knowing where he was, but begging for the fight to continue. No one was expecting Slim to win this fight. It felt like he was being fed to FaZe Temper so that FaZe Temper could fight KSI on the next Misfits card, build up KSI in his career. However, Slim picked up the win and threw a wrench into the plans of Misfits X DAZN X Series. I have a couple of honorable mentions that I feel like need to be mentioned. One of the main honorable mentions that I want to talk about in general was the Mogul Chess boxing event. There wasn't a moment on this card that really stood out to me that deserved to be on the list. However, it was an amazing spectacle that shocked a lot of people. And in addition to this, it put on a ton of funny fights, including Churlies versus Myth, and just some really great matchups that, well, I mean, who's watched a chess boxing event? I know I haven't until now. Another honorable mention is Slim Albaher taking on Ryan Taylor in probably what would have been the fight of the year if Ryan Taylor fought back a little bit better. However, Slim put on an absolute masterclass, retaining his title, beating Ryan Taylor in the first match that Slim had to take on that didn't get him a KO victory. Another honorable mention that I feel like bad if I didn't go on to mention in this video, Deji going 6 rounds with Money May himself. Now, this matchup wasn't great for Deji, don't get me wrong. Deji didn't look amazing, however, he went 6 rounds with the GOAT. Number 1, Deji finally picks up a victory after multiple disappointing outings. Deji was finally set to make a return following a disappointing loss to Alex Wasabi in which he showed major improvements but refused to throw any punches. Angry and seeking revenge, Deji went out to face FouseyTube and picked up one of the most wholesome victories you'll ever see, dropping FouseyTube and then eventually piecing him up on the feet so bad that the towel had to come in and FouseyTube's own corner had to save him from further damage. Deji finally had won via a TKO. And man, one of the greatest moments I think we've seen in the history of YouTube boxing, so wholesome. His corner came out, held him up into the air, the crowd went nuts, Deji finally did it, and in one of the most spectacular moments in YouTube boxing, Deji got it done, and the wholesomeness, the 10 million subscribers that he has on his own channel, all of his fans, makes Deji finally getting the victory, the most wholesome and the best moment of 2022 inside the world of YouTube and influencer boxing.